this territory. Let's begin. Let's listen to statements said by the authorities of Iraq and what had to do with the withdrawal. We should find the best way to implement the withdrawal of the armed forces. Any way to weaken the security will be bad. We received a letter from William Selling, he is the chief of the Joint Staff, about the withdrawal of his soldiers. But after a couple of hours, they said that the letter was not correct. When the letter said that the soldiers would be withdrawn, it was sent to the proper authorities. United States wants to go through with their objectives by provoking internal wars that will and at the end will divide Iraq so bad until this destruction. What NATO can do in Iraq is to create more capacity. This will resolve all our problems, but if we don't do that, we will have a great big problem without a doubt. And then in 3 years, we'll have to go back to a combat position. We need to construct everything. We have to have a good armed forces to defend this. Let's locate this country. That is now the center of our analysis. Iraq, objective of imperial desires, known as Mesopotamia before. It is crossed by the Tigris and the Euphrates, and it's now the Republic of Iraq. The country is in the southeast of Asia. They have the borders are several. To the north, Turkey. To the south, with Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. To the east, Iran. And to the west, from Syria and Jordania, with a surface of 438,317 square kilometers. It has its capital city is Baghdad. Throughout history, it's been the house of many empires, like the Babylonians, Macedonians, Ottomans, and Britain. In this country, there are several religions that don't recognize them. Iraq has a wide stretch because of its oil reserves. The reserves are among the biggest in the world, of almost 112,000 barrels. It was in Baghdad where the agreement began. There were other resources with phosphate and sulfur. And in the context of the Davos Forum, Trump met with their counterpart from Iraq, speaking of how they could reduce the interference. It's incredible to be with the president of Iraq. We are working on many things together, working about the arms and the troops, about ISIS. We're discussing very difficult topics. We have been friends throughout many years, and the relationship is good. Thank you very much. It's a probability to know better about Mr. Trump. We have tried to find a sincere cooperation between the president and us. The United States has been, I think that we all share the same purpose. Did you hear what the Iraqi president just said? Well, we're going to see an article from Hispan TV. Iraq will not accept a counterpart that meets with Trump because his hands are drenched in blood. The communications are different. because Hezbollah and Hezbollah B, that are both have to do with the outskirts of Hezbollah. He has asked the president of the United Nations to not let him participate in a meeting. But the thing is that he already this is something very informal. The project to expel exactly there. This is in the west of the nation. The assassination of the eagle. This is on January 5th. There was a request to ask Baghdad to not let Baghdad letting him asleep, because what happened was that the president of Iraq did meet with Donald Trump. Now we'll see what's going on. Telesur. 3 rockets impact near the embassy of the United States in Iraq. Several missiles have impacted in the vicinities of the U.S. embassy, according to the people inside. There has been no answer about if there's any injuries or deaths with the military equipment.
Agencias de noticias han divulgado la hipótesis de que el lanzamiento de los cohetes se realizó desde
and some thought that it was
a las afueras de la capital iraquí. Aprovecho para recomendarle la lectura y análisis.
I take advantage of being able to send an edible. And the assassination of Soleimani has just proven it. This was on the 7th of January. Let's make a selection of this paragraph. For example, this one that says, during the era of the invasion of Iraq by Bush, it recognized that for most of the world they're regarding an awful pre-register.
De hecho, el principal estado canalla hoy es Estados Unidos. Lo dijo Noam Chomsky. El asesinato de Soleimani, en realidad.
That's what he says. The assassination of Soleimani has provided ISIS a marvelous opportunity to start again, and this undoubtedly will help Iran, because the Iranian government will ask every time more. I'm doing Trump has left the north of Iraq, the zone where ISIS was, and what he's doing is cutting the grass under his enemies' feet. Their militia, internal militia. How will they be able to confront? And we will have to depend each time more on Iraq. And just like what happened with Iran when they invaded this country. Diplomacy Israel's game of putting oxygen into a balloon has been reacting every time slower and slower and slower. And any policy of soft power and the reserves has withstand. Not other country could do the same. And of course, nobody has over 100 military base and the capacity and the will. The idea to impose sanctions against the United States or any other country
causa lo grotesco.
We have the details with Hisham Wanous. He's our correspondent for the Middle East about what's going on in this regard.
Hola, colegas. Saludos, amables televidentes. El proyecto para expulsar a Estados Unidos de los territorios de Irak arrancó justo después de que las fuerzas norteamericanas
This happened just after there was a bombarding in December 30th. Several positions in Qatar. This is to the west of Qatar. To this offense, they asked for withdrawal from the United States immediately. And they assassinated the Al-Quds leader.
El teniente general Qasem Soleimani y al subcomandante de las fuerzas iraquíes de movilización popular Abu Mahdi.
And they were both brought down. The aircraft where Soleimani was and another top colonel. They have asked the government of Baghdad to cancel the request of assistance of the U.S. and put an end to their presence in this anti-Daesh coalition and any other context. On the other hand, Iran has bombarded the U.S. bases in Iraq, and their final response will be done by the expulsion of these troops from Iraq. However, in pressure to all this, the United States has said that he has no plan to leave this. And to attain this objective, Washington tries to debilitate Iraq. And they must recognize that they want to maintain their troops in Iraq to control the petroleum, just like they've done in Syria. Likewise, President Trump has threatened with, and at the same time, the United States tries to do the best they can with the sentence they got.
En una medida que espera satisfaga las demandas de las facciones en el Parlamento iraquí que votaron a favor del retiro.
And let's not forget that
Todo indica que los iraquíes, al igual que los sirios e iraníes y los demás integrantes del bloque de la resistencia,
without a doubt, everybody of the bloc of the resistance are determined to expel the U.S. troops from the region, and they are working together, and they assure that they're using every medium in their hands. This is all of the information we have now. We'll be back to you. Thank you very much, Hicham, in our critical move. But remember that we also have a question on the screen. Now it has to the. Here we have. And in this sense, there will be a military presence in the area. Why do they insist on staying there? Why don't you give us your opinion? See the map? Let's go to our first pause. We'll be right back. Why was the Iraq invasion in 2003? Let's see the context of all of this. The invasion in Iraq has the precedent, the war against terrorism, pushed by the U.S. ever since the 2001 attempts of the Twin Towers. That was a pretext to justify their intervention in many Middle Eastern countries. Many countries declared the war in Iraq with the excuse of having mass destruction weapons on behalf of Saddam Hussein, who was an ally of the U.S. in the Gulf War. this pretense was never proven, and the inspections that were carried out by international organisms after Saddam Hussein was captured, the situation has not been anything but worse. The war has gone through all the way to 2011. Over 200,000 people have died, and far from pushing away terrorism, the attempts have increased 7 times more since the beginning of this invasion, mostly from Al-Qaeda, but the evidence the United States supports terrorist groups, financing them and allowing them to have these violent actions, or making new organizations like the Self-Determined Islamic State, a ramification of the previously mentioned. These extreme groups have spread all through the region. Let's begin the first part of our analysis. For this, we are with Pablo Buffet. He's a writer, an international analyst, specialist in topics of the Middle East. We can also speak with Julian Aguirre. He's an international analyst, specialist in conflicts of this nature. We greet you both. Julian, let's start with Pablo. Pablo, we see a complex panorama for Iraq, while the people and the parliament demand the ousting of the U.S. troops from this territory that's been occupied for more than 10 years. Now we see that the Iraqi president meets with Donald Trump and agrees to have this alleged cooperation. Well, in fact, this is a complex situation, not only for Iraq, but for all of the Middle East, and for all of the countries that are part of this region of the world. And it's also dangerous because of the elements that have to do with war, with occupation, with presence of American bases, but because there's instability and permanent. It's not casual. It's more than 10 years. It's 16 years. And in 1991, Iraq was invaded in what was called the Second Gulf War. So there's a panorama of intervention of foreign forces that makes it even more dangerous now, because now there's a change in the co-relationship of powers. Now this is for the association that are trying to seek more sovereignty, and what they're trying to do is avoid a powerful enemy like the United States. What they're going to do is do everything to keep on having the power and the hegemony that they have up until now. So the declarations of President Baham Sadi are a mistake, not only because they're going against what the Prime Minister says and the Parliament demands, but because of the main political forces have demanded of the ousting. These are troops that there are like 5,000 Americans and 4,000 of other nationalities still have military bases in Iraq, and therefore they keep up the idea of balkanization. I think that President Sadi has made this big mistake, pushed forward by the American pressure, and will create even more pressure on the interior of Iraq, which makes the internal political situation even more complicated. Let's not forget that this country has had protests with a high level of life, with the intervention of the American forces, and that also increased ever since the invasions of the U.S. And this was What they did was they invaded a military base that was in Iraq and violating international law. Thank you very much, Pablo. Stay with us. Now let's. I would like to offer our audience this next material. Let's speak about the military bases that the U.S. has in Iraq. According to the index of the failed countries, Iraq is the 11th more unstable country in the world. Ever since the 2003 war, a multinational delegation occupies this country. Several military bases of the U.S. are scattered all around the Middle East. In Iraq, there have been 14. The green zone that is located in the center of Iraq, Camp Victoria or Al Nasser, that is 5 kilometers away from the international airport of Baghdad. Al Sark, that is also in the capital, Fallujah. The complete location is unknown. Saladino, Camposaki, Liberty Point in Mosul, Mares, that is located to the southeast of Mosul, Camp Renegade near Kirkuk, a military base. Another member of Al-Qaeda is near the northern border with Syria. Here we have, let's go back to our analysis with Julian and Pablo. We were still pending a question with Julian. I think we've lost the image, but you're probably on the phone. Did the president of Iraq have any idea of what he was doing when he sat down and spoke in the Davos summit, having the military giving them warnings against Brazil?
Buenas tardes. Recordemos que
Let's recall that Iraq is in a political and a social critical situation, and symbolic measures are not enough, and they may have even repercussions that will go beyond the will of those who participated. The major part of the attributes of the government. Let's recall that the current Prime Minister of Iraq is having has an emergency, and now there's going to be a new election to determine the president. This is important to say because the internal dynamic of the country must have as I said, there is a fourth mobilization on the streets that mobilize and represent. And they have gone over the sovereignty of a country. Just last week, a leader from the country called on mobilizations and to reject the U.S. presence in his country. We must understand that he has a very important influence. And part of the militia that is this huge defense operation from Iraq. Let's not forget, we are speaking also for the Iraqis, the assassination of al-Muhandis, who made a great war against terrorism and the Islamic State.
Unidos a la hora de promover retóricamente sus operaciones en el exterior. Todo esto abre, por supuesto, un abanico de posibilidades, muchas de ellas impredecibles, acerca de qué pasará. Se ha especulado mucho acerca
There has been speculation
en qué condiciones permanecerán las tropas
about what is the situation,
acerca de si se relocalizarán.
and we're going to see if they relocate them.
De que se muevan al Kurdistán iraquí.
And they've been asked to move to the Kurdistan.
El gobierno regional autónomo del Kurdistán iraquí. Hay especulaciones acerca de que podrían al menos,
and it's clear that at least they could at least reduce their numbers, or just be involved with training of the military forces of Iraq. We must remember that the assassination of Qasem Soleimani is and apparently there are some troops in the United States, and this is why they're present there to combat the Islamic State and the assassination of people and public functionaries of other countries. This breaks with this is what at the beginning Iraq is trying to invoke. Now, the words of the Iraqi president speak about the political fragmentation that the country lives and the delicate balance of forces that is today the situation has become even worse. Against all of these other attitudes that are against international law. Everything you said has been so important, Julian. Now, as a partial conclusion, Pablo, it's been said in many occasions that what's behind all of this, because the trigger was the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, but what's behind it is Iran. I want to ask from here, is this posture of Iraqi president in name of his country, of his government, these are the same people who have done this before, and if it's the bar, and let's not forget that he's the president of the Persian nation. The true vengeance will be done after the last soldier has left the military zone. The military zone. So having them open the doors so their troops will be in Iraq, I ask myself. And I insist on something, the words of the Iraqi president that we know that he represents in a symbolic way. And they do have some repercussion and international, they follow them through the short story. And this is the route and what we have to follow that coincides with the opinion of the Islamic Republic of Iran and the main directories. The real punishment against Qasem Soleimani is to take all of the troops of American, all of them out. And here, why do we have to follow on what goes with everything done before? And this agreement gave the country and what they do is that they recover all of the armed forces that were sprouted around Iraq. Now, Pablo, what is the guarantee that they're going to do away with this agreement when the president has just said this? Well, I will demand that the to open the scalp and give a presentation there. And what it does is it doesn't allow anybody to tell anybody that he is here. There is no way. And apart from what the Prime Minister has said so, and they agree with the political forces of this country, so therefore, just to sit down and explain what he said is to keep on playing his game. And what do I stand in Iraq? I am here just like I am in Syria. At the end, we were seeing the case of Iraq, but what is the characteristics of the militarization of the superpowers in the Middle East? Let's see this. The U.S. invention in the so-called fight against terrorism has been of great utility to mask their wars. All of the patterns just repeat itself. A country that wants multipolar world, lots of natural resources, or a strategic position, then they are in the list of authorities. This is not the first time that Iraq have been asked to come to this mission, but the Middle East are important for the U.S. for two motives. One, the resources that are concentrated in this zone, and the strong links to these countries, and stop the division of the Pan-Arabic unity through a constructive chaos that is done through coup d'etats or color revolutions. What they do is they make the basis even weaker. The objective of the imperialism in the Middle East has been to generate division among the nations that are part of them so they can confront them individually. For this, they divide the maximum of divide and conquer, and they have an ally in the zone, which is Israel. Ever since its creation, they have assassinated thousands of Palestinians and taken away their lands. United States has also followers. Saudi Arabia, Qatar. With these last, there has been some problems because of the blockade they have. This does guarantee you everything. While at the same time, you could use the rule. Well, I said it was the first time that it's the first time that I have the opportunity to interview this person. I've been dialoguing a lot through the phone, through the Skype, but now he's here. Dr. Miguel Jaimes, he's a specialist in political science, expert in geopolitics, and something very important is he is founder and director. To speak of the geopolitics of Iraq is to speak of the geopolitics of oil. Well, we want to show our solidarity with Telesur. Well, in the Persian Gulf, we see a first topic to study everything that has to do with the conflict, the demography, the political situation in Iraq, a war that hasn't happened since 1979, and that after 1990, when the North American imperialism decided that all of the aggressions against the oil are directed against the nations of OPEC. What there is in Iraq, there's a direct aggression against the people of the OPEC
porque busca su control.
because they try to seek their control. Many presidents have said so. They've said it very openly that they're going to make OPEC kneel in front of them. Let's remember this diplomacy that Hugo Chávez Frías has defended this person. And one of the first figures is Iraq, because it's the same. If it's true, Iran, when they spoke, they said that they occupy the big border of the northern part. And Iraq, due to their position, they have more chances of having. All of the aggressions have been against these people because there are these fields called Kirkuk that have an extension in natural resources that's very big. Maybe one of the most successful in the region. Like 10 years ago, United States and these people wanted to produce 9 million barrels a day. This was not possible. And now what they're doing is an aberration where they want to make people think that every Muslim is a terrorist, and they've taken a lot of propaganda so they can see that they're being victims of a terrorist pointing at them with a gun. And this has and they determine the peace or instability in the region. And there's so many abuse that's not everything's going on in the neighborhoods, the amount of Iraqis that were still there. And the United States has not been able to inform their country. And trying to take a terrorist model that is where you use a mental force on behalf of these organizations, and the results have been awful for Iran. For Iraq, this is the biggest demonstration against the pictures. What they do against Iraq is what they want to do against other nations. And let's not forget that in Iraq, this has been an aggression against us. And great part of these fields are on the limit, on the border with Syria, which is the throat of the Mediterranean. Here you have all of the projects of the gas lines, oil line, that will lead all the way to that part. In the war, he needs to give us a war of Syria. So what we're trying to do is to get together to Iran. And what they're trying to do is to be the key to other nations. And of course, the United States sends any type of order from the Oval Office. And if that was not this one, they would do it with anybody else. And the United States is left like a defeated party, as they did with Iraq. And NATO can see it. Now they're going to cross the Mediterranean to generate a presence in Europe. And in the Maghreb, it is spoken about an Al-Qaeda of other groups in the zone by which they want to hold their revolution events only in there. This is more like a position, a political, ideological, nationalist position. And this is part of the racism and the mistreatment that U.S. has done throughout the region to attain the control of the petroleum and to influence in their price, to put away some of these cars because they know that the numbers are in. That's why they try to create a small, very small and something even worse. Can we speak of an Iraq with everything that's been done against them? Even before the authority was assassinated. Well, you can see that there's a major unity on behalf. And you should add something else to this. This is a sentiment of many nations that put at risk the topic of religion. Let's not forget that Iraq has a great Sunnite resource where and these are at the moment they were even enemies. But behind all of this is and this is what they called petromonarchies, Kuwait, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. When the world was impressive was when the 1997-96 and they also participated, Toyota also participated with their vehicles for transportation. But in 2018, the United States has just sold to Saudi Arabia and now what they're going to do is from this military force, they are doing everything they can. Now they're bombarding Yemen, and the traffic through the Strait of Hormuz is more difficult every time for any group who wants to control the oil in the area. We're speaking of a control of 20 million barrels. And that the waters also belong to Iran. So in Yemen, there's lot less defeats, even before they're not able to have a plan of small material design. And for this economy, and all of those topics for which the United States fought for, they've not been able to attain them. That's why this coward man and they've tried to establish a relationship, a strategic relationship where they have spoken. And this, I think that we can keep on talking for hours, Ray. But for the first time in this century,
lo que ha sucedido allí es un hecho muy grave, aparte de lamentable, pero muy delicado, que desconfigura toda la fuerza de la estabilidad.
And this
This
is something we must analyze and see the impact of the words of the Iraqi president that was just held. Now it's even going to the doubt. Let's see if the further investigations say more. Thank you very much, Miguel, for being with us and coming here.
Reflexionar sobre un tema tan polémico pero tan necesario por nuestros días, ¿verdad? Y qué importante que se hace aquí en este programa Jugada Crítica.
And it's so good that you are able to interview me and investigate a little bit more. Let's go to conclusions now. United States is doing a lot by withdrawing the military forces in Iraq. What is to lose the support to the monarchies of the Middle East, losing the resources and helping Israel. Hard times ahead after saying these. The president of Iraq, by supporting the words of Trump, is also putting himself in danger. However, there's other groups who don't like this. This is all for today.